This episode of IGN Conversations is brought to you by Gran Turismo 6, available December 6th.
Hey guys, Eric and Roth here, and this has been quite the week for comic book movie stuff, Wonder Woman announcement, Spider-Man 2 trailer, and then hey, Bryan Singer decided to throw in our laps a tweet saying X-Men Apocalypse, a movie opening in 2016.
2016, in May of 2016, 2 years after Days of Future Past. And yeah, it really does feel like they're just trying to one-up each other. It's like, we got Wonder Woman, we're Warner Brothers. Hey, how about the Spider-Man trailer? Yeah, I'm Bryan Singer. Apocalypse.
Another X-Men movie.
So this is really exciting. Let's talk a little bit about Apocalypse.
Apocalypse, you know, a big featured character in the X-Men comic books, one of their main villains. And, you know, everyone will talk about his sort of big iconic storyline being the Age of Apocalypse.
Which is what we assume, think, hope. That this storyline, it's got to be this storyline.
Some inspiration for this storyline. Age of Apocalypse being, you know, he's this survival of the fittest is what Apocalypse is all about. He's thousands of years old, and he's a mutant who really just believes.
So he is the fittest.
He's the fittest. Only the strongest will survive. Age of Apocalypse being an alternate reality. They live those in our comic books. Where he really took over, and everything was very, even darker than Days of Future Past in some ways, except flipped on its side.
Because he definitely hates humans, and he will definitely kill them en masse, but he'll also kill mutants if they're deemed weak.
Right.
Or not on his team.
Yeah,
you know?
Maybe he doesn't even hate humans, he just is like, you're weaker, so
whatever, just go away. It's very much like the harshest edge of sort of an evolutionary idea, right? The harshest idea of Darwinism, which is kind of cool in two ways. One is that that's the humans' biggest fear about the mutants, is that that's what they're going to do, and that's why sort of you get people resisting or wanting to intern the mutants, because they're afraid that's what they're going to do to them. The second reason that this is kind of cool is that we were talking about this is almost like the opposite storyline to Days of Future Past, in that, you know, you've got this dystopic future in Days of Future Past where the mutants are interned and subjugated. Well, now you've got a different storyline where it's the humans that are interned and subjugated. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
And as a total sci-fi nerd, I know I'm going on forever, but as a total sci-fi nerd, I mean, this is what I assume it is that in Days of Future Past, that they're going to fix this one problem, which is they fix this one dystopic future, and here comes the bigger problem, or a different problem.
A different problem, yeah.
A different problem.
We also think this is maybe there. You know, a lot has been said already by Bryan Singer about using Days of Future Past to kind of fix things from the franchise, kind of settle some of the different timelines. And we wonder if this will now be really splitting them off and continuing the First Class storyline, if you want, in those movies, but then going back to the original team and now having Apocalypse, and whatever happens in Days of Future Past, and we don't know, we haven't read the script or anything, but maybe it just...
Have we?
It lets them really split them off and be like, this can be its own thing now, continue on with the original cast, we theorize, along with some new characters.
Yeah, and this is a conversation. I did an interview with Bryan Singer a year ago for Jack the Giant Slayer, where we talked a lot about of Days of Future Past, and one of the things that we talked about was, I was just like, man, you can just have sort of infinite stories now, and it's true, and I think it's a very clever way to utilize this franchise to the best of its ability without just, I mean, spin-off movies are great, but without just doing that, you know? There's any number of things that you can do at this point, and I think you can do it with the same actors in many cases, and so and you can bring back actors that maybe we miss, you know?
Right. They already, you know, people are already mentioning that the fact that Days of Future Past, even from the characters we know are in it and being introduced, can certainly be a part of Apocalypse. Blank, who's going to be in Days of Future Past, presumably in a pretty small part. She was a pretty featured character in the Age of Apocalypse storyline. You could certainly use Bishop in that storyline. And there was already people even wondering if some of those temples we saw in the future sequences in the trailer might have been tied into Apocalypse, and now they very well might be.
Yeah, but I mean, I wonder how that will, anyway, because that doesn't really totally gel with
changing over.
Yeah,
but who knows?
But who knows what it's going to be.
I think we all know that the post-credit scene, and you got to have a post-credit scene on a comic book movie these days, for Days of Future Past will certainly lead into Apocalypse at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, it's funny because one of the things that we were talking about, we heard this over lunch, one of the things we were talking about is like, well, how does this affect X-Force, and I think it doesn't. And I think that's sort of the beauty of what they've done. It doesn't have to, because these are alternate realities, alternate universes, alternate timelines.
Or it leads right into X-Force, because Cable is very tied in to Apocalypse in the comics.
Yeah.
And so we haven't gotten a date on X-Force yet. We just know there's a script out there. And this is the only X-Men movie that we have a date for past Days of Future Past. We know there's probably going to be another Wolverine movie with James Mangold directing, but I'm assuming that will all happen after Apocalypse Now. So I think, I could see X-Force...
Apocalypse Now.
Apocalypse Now.
That's awesome.
I could see X-Force spinning off of X-Men Apocalypse at this point.
Yeah.
It seems like that might be a way to go with the more militarized group of X-Men who have to stop him.
Yeah, actually, that does make perfect sense. Good call. I think another sort of question mark that we have is that, so Bryan Singer sent the tweet out, but that... Yeah. We don't know if that means. We assume, of course, that he will be godfathering it, producing it at the very least.
At the very least, yeah.
But possibly directing it as well.
Yeah, I think it's almost a certainty he's directing it.
I feel like it probably is at this point.
I think he's back with X-Men in a big, big way.
And honestly, and I'm sure there are mixed opinions about this, and we were talking about this earlier, I cannot wait for this movie.
Days of Future Past?
I have so many high hopes about it. I am really glad that Singer's back on board with this franchise.
Yeah, same here. And my last question story-wise is one of the bigger storylines that was one of the early storylines for Apocalypse was his Four Horsemen and the fact that he turned Angel, one of their own, into death, into the Angel of Death. And that they would repeat that over the years and have other beloved characters become one of the Horsemen, including Wolverine at one point. So will they bring Angel back in that movie? He's not in Days of Future Past. Or will it be, once again, we need to have Wolverine center stage?
Yeah, I mean, that is a good question. But that's what I was saying, is that what's beautiful about this is that it does give you the opportunity to do that, and sort of bring back characters that maybe we do want to see more of. And frankly, I mean, they work so great as a unit. Yes, Wolverine is the star of this franchise. We know that. But let's not undercut the fact that this works as an ensemble as well.
Yeah. And this is their chance now with all these spin-off movies to really build up that ensemble.
Yeah.
Lots to talk about. We are very excited. X-Men Apocalypse opening May 2016. Let us know what you think in the comments, guys, and we'll have plenty more as we learn more about this movie.